Welcome to the iHeart Family Podcast. You're currently listening to our Connect Family Dinner series with Pastors Brandon and Melody Hawley. Whether you've been a part of our church family for a long time or you're brand new around here, Connect is where to start. You'll hear more about who we are, what we believe, and our vision for the future. After today's message, be sure to check out the show notes for additional resources on today's podcast. Let's dive right in.
Well, we are on our very last day. You were almost finished with us of Connect Family Groups, and it's just been a joy to have you guys. We're going to wrap up today, finishing out on this last core value before we meet together for our final time this Sunday night at your Connect dinner. So today we're going to be talking about the S in GPS, and that is the missionality aspect, the serve. And so, I think that it's super important as we really go into serving. Again, this is one of those topics we could spend multiple, whole sermons on. It's really going to be hard to cover in a quick podcast, but I think that when we're talking about discipleship and Jesus's method of discipling, I think that when we don't look at the scriptures, it becomes easy to not even recognize the potency of serving in the discipleship process. How the connection between serving being the outworking of discipleship. It's through serving others, whether in my home, in the temple, or out in the field. It's through serving that I get the chance to be humble. It's through serving I get the chance to be obedient and to love my enemies. It's through serving that I get the chance to submit to one another and pray for one another. The actual opportunities to make the word of God not just go from our heads to our hearts, but out of our lives comes through serving. Serving is how we are really apprenticed. It is how we are actually discipled.
Right. And Jesus, when he spent time with his disciples, there were many times that he talked about serving. One time he said that the Son of Man didn't come to be served, but to serve and to lay down his life for many. You see Jesus, even when he's healing the sick and casting out demons and things, he's serving the people. Many times, there's times when he's wanting to get away and have a time of retreat, but he sees the needs of the people, and so he's moved with compassion to begin to serve the people. And even at the Last Supper in John 13, he bows down, he washes the disciples' feet, which, if we did a foot washing service today, most people wouldn't want to attend because they either wouldn't want to touch somebody's feet or wouldn't want somebody touching their feet. Mm-hmm. And we're walking around with shoes and socks, and, most of us, you're not going more than a day or two without a bath, and, so you're fairly clean and everything. And these disciples are walking around with sandals and, walking on streets where animals use the bathroom, and all this stuff is dried to their feet and everything. And Jesus humbles himself and washes their feet. And then he looks at them and he says, no servant is greater than their master. The very thing that you saw me do, you need to do this also. And so Jesus he modeled servanthood, but he also used servanthood as a way to disciple his disciples. And I think that's something that we need in church world today. A lot of times we use people for ministry, but Jesus used the ministry or the servanthood to develop the people. Mm-hmm. And so he is going along, and they feed the 5,000, and he uses them to come alongside, and then they feed the 4,000, and they're involved in it. And then later there's an issue where he tells them to beware the leaven of the Pharisees and the Herodians. And they're like, oh no, we forgot bread. And Jesus is like, I'm not talking about bread. Don't you get it yet? And he reminded them of the 5,000 and the 4,000. And so he's using these service opportunities as a way to teach and a way to develop faith in his disciples, to just trust God for the provision and to know that God is going to meet the needs of the people. If we would just use what we have available and serve, that God will always come and meet us there and meet the needs of the people.
Yeah, and I think that what's so interesting is as you abide in him and his words abide in you, and it's just daily getting this manna from the Lord. Again, like discipleship, this naturally happens with relational, intentional discipleship without you even realizing it. So right. I think about even my own discipleship process, I was not discipled by a class. I was discipled by a couple of pastors' wives that were intentional, but very like organic with me. Like we didn't go to Panera and have coffee and walk through the Bible, although we could have done that. Really, I came alongside where they were. And I think this is really key because, again, Jesus didn't go follow his disciples into their life. They followed him into his sphere. They got into the field where he was.
Right.
And being in the field where he was, they got to see ministry lived out. They got to see the gospel lived out.
And they got to see the miracles performed.
It was in real life training that they got to see him up close. And so I think this is how organic discipleship happens. And I think that some of you, while we said that some of you might be discipling people and don't realize it, is because I do think that this happens as we really are connecting to him. He starts to guide us little bit by little bit, drawing us to certain people that might need love, or maybe needs to come over for a meal, or you want to pull this close and a person close and invite them to come with you, or inviting them to serve with you. Like, some of you are already doing this. We just want to call attention to it so that there's more intentionality with it. So like for me, my pastor's wife, Miss Lolly, she was until she passed away about 1.5 years ago at the time of this recording. She passed away fairly suddenly from a brain tumor. And so until she passed away, though, I don't think I really recognized her role in my life of discipleship. At the time, I was a very broken, messed up 16, 15-year-old. I'd known her for a long time. I'd been there at church. And I remember Miss Lolly just taking me in. And so I vacillated, in this chair too, of wanting to serve the Lord, but I had no Christian friends in my high school. And she would just invite me to come over. I would help her with her kids. I'd babysit for her, or I would work in nursery with her, or I would help her set up in the fellowship hall for a meal, or I would sing with her on the worship team, or she would let me write a play for the church and direct it. And I didn't recognize until after she passed what monumental impact she made. I got to see that I could be a loud, creative female and still have a place as a pastor's wife. Like, I didn't realize what God was showing me through her, because a lot of things you see in me, I really saw demonstrated in her that it was okay to be me and to flourish in this gift set. And then later, my pastor's wife, she, had children, and she was demonstrating, not in a class, but in real life. I would come alongside her sphere, again, leading worship or helping with children's ministry, or helping in the women's ministry or decor. And as I was just with her, I got to see in real time how she interacted with her children and her family. Or if I was hurting or struggling, I was there, so she would see it and she'd ask me, is everything okay? And she'd be able to counsel me through in my marriage. And so what we want you to see is that this is much more organic than we've made it. It happens just by so many of you, if you're serving already in the church, it's as simple as inviting people that you feel drawn to come serve with you, and to realize that's a discipleship opportunity to come and to serve with you, and to be intentional in that process to teach them, to help them, to show them how to do ministry, to maybe correct or refine. Like, these are natural, organic ways to disciple. Again, in even making disciples, I think about some of the people in our church when we first started our church, that we did this. We didn't know we were doing this. We just did this. Our church started as a small group who met, and we genuinely just enjoyed being around together. We would gather together. We would eat. We would go to each other's kids' games. When one of us needed something, we would take care of it. We would pray for each other. We'd study the scriptures. And then our group went from chair 2 to chair 3. We started to serve. We asked them if they wanted to plant the church with us and to get out in the community and serve. And so we were around each other a lot, not just hanging out in our small group, but serving together. And we started the church together. And it was coincidentally about 3 to 4 years, and we started to see these people step into chair 4. And now our group naturally changed to where they no longer needed us day by day like they did at first. And now they were actually discipling on their own. And now they're pastors in our, I think about Pastor Aaron and Tab that are pastors in our church, and some of the people from the early group that were stepping into really being parent roles themselves. But it wasn't a class. It was much more organic. It was inviting people into your life and then inviting your group into the field.
It was just spending time together and being intentional
about
connecting to God and connecting to each other. And looking for those opportunities to speak truth, opportunities to pray for one another, opportunities to just share our lives and even some of the things that were going on, struggles, ask for prayer, things, and it just naturally began to work. And then even just the early days of passing out popsicles in places and bottled waters and, just different community outreaches and things that we did, or even set up and tear down at Tamarack. It became a thing where it was a place where we got to talk about just life, what's going on, and all of that. And it really is just about being intentional about connecting relationally to each other and to God.
And what I think is so cool is that, again, just looking organically when we didn't really have language or verbiage for this, some people connect to the body through groups. That's where they start. They come into a small group and they get saved there, and then you can connect them to serving. Other people, however, they prefer to connect by serving. Like, these are people that get to know us by signing up in children's or volunteering at a food truck or with Safe Haven, our women's addiction ministry. And so, and then we invite them into small groups from their service opportunities. So it doesn't really matter which comes first. I think this is unique because some people, they won't come to church unless they're on the schedule. They like to feel needed. And so that may be the entry point, is inviting them into serving with you. Whereas some people, they may not want to serve, but they'll come to your house if you cook for them. And so it's figuring out, like, I think as we're inviting people in, and that our groups are just intentional. As a group, we have the mindset to serve, that our groups should not just be meeting around scripture, not just praying together, but serving together. And this could even look like whole groups choosing one Sunday that's their serve Sunday. And so there's an accountability that they all show up. They can split in their different areas on that Sunday, but they meet first in the parking lot in the lobby and they pray together, and then they go and they serve that Sunday together. Or a group might choose to serve at an outreach food truck. You can serve in-house or out-house. The point is that this group is not just focused on themselves, but this group has an outward focus, and they're keeping that central. The gospel mandate is central to the whole group.
Right. And even some of those groups that do that with the food trucks, they go and they serve the community, but then they even start discipleship courses and stuff where they invite the community to come alongside and be a part of their group and opening up those doors. And so it really is just about trying to be intentional about progressing in our walk with God, strengthening our relationship with each other. And, the Bible talks about how we're to spur one another on to good works.
Yeah, I love that.
And motivate and inspire one another to good works. And a lot of that comes together as a group, and just beginning to the same way that we planted our church off of a group. I believe that even other campuses and things will be planted off of groups of people who just get together with an intentionality to make disciples, to reach an area or community with the gospel, and just begin to allow God to work in their life and begin that process.
Yeah, and I just think it's super important that we remember that this was important to God. This was important. This is important to Jesus. That Jesus even said, he separated, again, like we talked about before, he separated the sheep from the goats, his true children. He will separate them. Their works did not save them, but their works were evidence of true salvation.
Right.
He did not choose them based on what they had posted or tweeted or believed or the class they took. He said, so I separate the sheep from the goats from I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you offered me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I was in prison and you visited me. That it even says the true religion is taking care of the widow and the orphan. This means it is impossible to truly be saved for any length of time and to not start to sense the heart of God for a lost humanity, that it should burn in our hearts so much that it outworks through our lives, that we care about his flock.
The more that we're in the Word and the more that we're in his presence praying together, the more that we realize what is truly near his heart. And even Jesus invites us to, when it comes to serving, to pray. And he said the harvest is great and the workers are few. So pray to the Lord who's in charge of the harvest to send more workers into the field. And so that's one of the things that's near to God's heart, is getting people into the field to serve the lost and to take care of the sheep. And even so much that when Jesus was with Peter on the seashore, he asked him, "Do you love me?" And he said, "Well, yes." He said, "Well, then feed my sheep." And he went through that process 3 times, and just really showing that if we truly are in love with God, then we're going to be in love with the things that he is, and we're going to want to desire to take care of people. And it's not something that we feel forced to do. It's something we feel honored to do because we're doing it for our first love.
Yeah, that his heart begins to, I had this, one of my daughters, when she was like 10, she had this, she said it was a vision. I don't know what she means by that, but she just said she had this image in her head of Jesus, and she sat in his lap, and he took her hand and he put one of her hands on his heart and one of her hands on her own heart. And she said, "Mommy, they were beating in 2 different beats. They weren't synced." And she said, "I knew that Jesus was telling me that he wanted to sync our heartbeats." And I think that it's so profound by this young girl, like that he was showing even this child in the faith, like as we grow closer to him, we should start to sync our heartbeat with him. I mean, think about the Lord praying in Luke 10:2. "The harvest is great, but the workers are few. Pray to the Lord who's in charge of the harvest. Ask him to send more workers into the field." Jesus is not asking for us to pray for the harvest because he said the harvest was plentiful. Like it's ripe, the fields are ripe for harvest. He doesn't send the fish until the nets can contain it. He does, because he cares about his flock.
He doesn't want to lose
He doesn't want to lose them. So he intentionally withholds the harvest until there's enough workers, until there's enough laborers after us. So one of the things that we've made a practice is praying that instead of being Martha's and like, these people won't help, like it's no, Jesus, I'm going to sync my prayers with yours. You said to pray for laborers. So I'm going to start, when I see a need, start to pray, "Father, send laborers after your own heart into the field." He looked at the crowds and he said he had compassion because they were like sheep without a shepherd. I hope you can hear our heart. I look into the fields and they are ripe. There are so many eager to be discipled, but the laborers are few. You are needed. Your group is needed in the house of God. You are needed in the fields. You are needed in outreach. Like the body of Christ needs all of us activated. And I think it's interesting that when Jesus told Peter this, when he commissioned him again at this last, end cap, after these fish miracles, he says, Jesus told him what kind of death, and then he said, "Come, follow me." Yeah. Now, Peter had already chosen to follow Jesus. He followed him early. What is he asking him? He's saying, "Continue to follow me. Right. Follow me deeper. Go deeper with me into discipleship. Go deeper in this process." So I encourage you right now, what is God asking you? Is he asking you to go deeper with him?
Yeah, and I think even that story with Jesus and Peter right before his ascension in John 21, Peter says that he went back fishing. Peter was trying to go back in the chair too.
Yeah.
And Jesus came to find him to pull him back and tried to refocus him. "Remember my sheep. If you love me, take care of my sheep."
Hard, but come back.
And so when the temptation, and he failed, he denied him 3 times, but he was like, "No, don't worry about all that. Just come back, take care of my sheep. If you love me, just come and take care of my sheep." And even prepare yourself for what type of death that you would find. And I think that's what the call is today. Some people may feel like they have messed up and God can't use them, and they've denied him by their lifestyle.
Or they feel inadequate.
But Jesus is calling. Just, if you love me, just come follow me. Come into my field. Take care of my sheep. Begin to grow. And then you see that God empowered Peter with the Holy Spirit. And then Peter gets up and again speaks in thousands. And then he's leading the church. And all it was a decision by Peter that I'm going to let my love for God keep me in the field, to continue the work, and then a reliance on God and His strength and power to do the work of the ministry.
Yeah, so as we kind of close this out, we want to encourage you to be mindful of how you can, you'll hear about this Sunday, how opportunities to connect in a group, to find a group, start a group, or connect your group to the larger whole. You'll also find opportunities to serve. And we really encourage you, this next step is crucial. This is when you decide if you're going to go through a Connect Family Dinner just because it's the thing to do to connect, or if you're going to take us up on the next actual step to connect with us, would be to get involved in a group, to get involved in serving at least one, at least start with one, take that next step in connection. We want to join in community with you. And we're asking you to prayerfully consider taking us up on this offer and joining into community, Christ-centered community with us. And so we will see you Sunday at this really big final Connect dinner. Thank you for being on this process with us. We have so loved it and enjoyed it. We love you and we're praying for you.
Thanks again for tuning in to the iHeartChurch Family Podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes for more information and tools that will help equip you as you become a disciple of Jesus. We also want to encourage you to download the iHeartChurch app, where you'll be able to find messages, resources, and opportunities to give and serve our church and community. You can also visit us online at Iheartchurch.online. We'll see you next time.